asked him to read. The prophet replied, I do not know how to read. The angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it anymore. He then released me and asked me to read. And I replied, I do not know how to read. Whereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time until I could not bear it anymore. Then he released me and asked me again to read. But again I replied, I do not know how to read. Or, what shall I read? Thereupon he caught me for the third time and pressed me and then released me and said, Read in the name of your Lord, who has created all that exists. He has created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is most generous, up to that which he knew not. Then Muhammad returned with the inspiration, his neck muscles twitching with terror, till he entered upon Khadijah and said, Cover me, cover me. They covered him till his fear is over. And then he said, O Khadijah, what is wrong with me? Then he told her everything that had happened and said, I fear that something may happen to me. Khadijah said, Never, but have the glad tidings, for by Allah, Allah will never disgrace you, as you keep good relations with your kin and kith. Speak the truth, help the poor and the destitute, serve your guests generously, and assist the deserving, calamity-afflicted ones. Khadijah then accompanied him to her cousin Waraqwa bin Nawfal bin Asad bin Abdul Uzza, long name, who during the pre-Islamic period became a Christian and used to write the writing with Hebrew letters. He would write from the gospel in Hebrew as much as Allah wished him to write. He was an old man and had lost his weight. Khadijah said to Waraqwa, Listen to the story of your nephew, O my cousin. Waraqwa said, O my nephew, what have you seen? Allah's apostle described whatever he had seen. Waraqwa said, This is the same one who keeps the secrets, Angel Gabriel, whom Allah has sent to Moses. I wish I were young and could live up to the time where your people would turn you out. Muhammad asked, Will they drive me out? Waraqwa replied in the affirmative and said, Anyone, man, who came with something similar to what you have brought was treated with hostility. And if I should remain alive till the day when you will be turned out, then I would support you strongly. But after a few days, Waraqwa died, and the divine inspiration was also paused for a while. And the prophet became so sad, as we have heard, that he intended several times to throw himself from the tops of high mountains. And every time he went up to the top of a mountain in order to throw himself down, Gabriel would appear before him and say, O Muhammad, you are indeed Allah's apostle in truth. Whereupon his heart will become quiet and he will calm down and will return home. And whenever the period of the calming of the inspiration used to become long, he would do as before. But when he used to reach the top of a mountain, Gabriel would appear before him and say to him what he has said before. There are a number of slight variations to the story, related by different people, describing Muhammad's visitation by a spirit, identifying himself as the angel Gabriel. These stories do not always agree with each other in perfect detail, but on the whole, a complete picture can be drawn of Muhammad's initial experience with the spirit and his reactions after. And that's what I just presented. From this encounter, Muslims believe that Allah, through the Archangel Gabriel, gave the collection of revelations to Muhammad that are now preferred as the Islamic scriptures.
Shalom, shalom, family. As always, at the 10-minute mark, I want to say the Lord's Prayer. So bow with me as we say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, honored be thy name. May thy kingdom come. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us each day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us on the righteous path, and guard us from the evil one. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, so shalom, shalom, family. Today is a special day. We have a new guest today. He has a lot of free time, and I wanted to have a holy conversation with him. So please welcome our new guest. I believe his name is Negi Springfield. So Negi, I just unmute your mic, and now you're up.
Yeah. Thank you. My name's Neg. It's nice to meet you.
Say it again.
Negi.
Negi. Okay, Negi. Shalom, Negi. How's it going?
It's good. Shalom.
That's a creative name. Where does it come from?
It comes from a manga and anime.
Oh, okay. I see. And are you in America?
Yes, I am.
Nice. I see. So I wanted to talk to you because I know that there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world today, and a lot of people are making really bad images of different finds and a lot of things that are going on in the world today. So I wanted to talk to you about some things. Now, the world that we live in, there's one important thing that we now. Are you a believer?
Yes.
Let me see. Make sure there's no. I guess I'll turn yours a little down a little bit. Make sure I'm not echoing. Here, actually, I know why. My phone had some sound, so it was kind of echoing because I had it close to the computer.
Oh, okay.
There we go. All right, so okay, that's good. That's good. So I wanted to talk to you about some things. Now, I am an individual that believes that the people that were sent into slave trade are the real Israelites. Now, I want to have a conversation with you about that because I think that it's a controversial topic, but I wanted you to have um, fair conversation to ask your questions on this subject because I know, when we take the first some media thing, like who is who, you'll probably say, the Ashkenazi, everyone knows that they're the Jews, so why wouldn't we not?
Actually, can I just stop you right there? Because I don't make an issue of it. I don't really care. If the people who want to follow that want to follow it, that means nothing to me. It doesn't hurt me in any way.
Right. But I believe that truth is important. Like, for example, let's say let's say I made a movie of the Romans, right? And I used an all black cast. Would you think that would be historically accurate?
No, it wouldn't be historically accurate.
So why is it that when we see, like, for example, movies of Egypt, right? Like, if I say an old movie of Egypt, why is it that the movies of Egypt ain't a white cast? You see what you're seeing?
I do agree with you that does look strange, but you have to remember Egypt was like a weird mixed nation. They were like very different looking.
But the question is, are they actually mixed? For example, like what I want to do is I want to show you the actual evidence and actually look at these things and actually consider, is the world actually just like it doesn't matter? They was all mixed, or is it that they actually have an agenda of changing the truth to something that they know is a lie? Like, for example, did you know there was a tomb that was found, one of Ramses' tombs that were just recently found? This ancient find was actually a big find. You can see right here, Deir el Medina, right here. This is a real tomb that they have found. You can see right here. And now, usually, the big thing about tombs, when they find tombs, usually they are not intact because Egypt had a lot of money in their tombs and they would usually be robbed. But they actually found a tomb during the time of Ramses II. And what's actually interesting about that is the 19th dynasty, and that's actually leading us to the people, everyone from the 19th dynasty. All the kings from that line, they called it the next royal line. we know that they are still there. And this tomb, we can actually see what the Egyptians look like. This is a recent find. This is what you're seeing here. This is the real tomb right here. You can see these pictures and all this stuff. I just got more higher quality pictures right here, as you can see, and then we can see what they look like. And if we actually look, they're not mixed. We don't have a mixed company, but rather what we have is a class of people that seem very similar. We can even see their leaders and things like that. The problem is the whiting out. Like when we actually see what's going on with a lot of the designs of Egypt, is actually a real problem of the changing of the color, because when we actually change the color, we're actually causing a system where we're actually thinking that the whole world, it was always ruled by a certain class of people. So we actually would see a lot of designing of a lower class of people, and then that would actually cause a lot of people to think that the world has always been like this. It's never been different. There's never been a time when anyone of a darker skin race ever ruled in any kingdom. So I think that's important to know when we look at ancient pictures and see who was ruling where and what did they look like, because even that's geographically accurate when we actually look at the areas they was in and we actually look at the characters of them. Because it wouldn't make any sense for me to paint Greeks, right, all black, right? If I were to take an all black cast and then show you the time of Troy and Greece, right? Because we know where Troy was, right? Troy was up there where Greece was and everything. So you see Greece right here, and they was going at it with Troy. And then remember the Trojan Wars. If I was to paint the Trojan Wars with Romania and all those, like Greece and everything, and make them all completely black, then we would have a problem. A lot of people who understand history are like, well, we know that they weren't black. We know that that was more of a European looking people. But if I said, oh, they were mixed, it didn't really matter. I just threw in a black cast. Because one of the things we got to understand is that though they're mixed, we actually notice that they usually make the leaders and anyone who is major in their design for Egypt, we can actually see that it's usually always one shade of color. It's always usually one shade of color. And what that does is that it brings in a lot of confusion to what we actually know historically because of movie magic, things like that. And
And
I
yeah,
think that's
most
important.
of that is Hollywood. You
Exactly.
can't really use Hollywood.
Well, I think so. I think we could, because I think that people need to speak up when these things are happening. Because if we allow Hollywood to just paint the picture of everything, right, they're actually not going to be held accountable for altering history. Because one of the things about Hollywood is that they should be accountable for information too. Because we know that we have the freedom of speech, but do we have the freedom of deceit to actually bring forth many lies to generations to come, so that the illustration of who was in the past was not who we know today? And that's what's important. The actual fines, I think it's important. I think it's important to remember actual fines and hold a lot of people accountable that do these things. That's what I think. And the reason why is because if we don't actually bring forth actual truth of the matter, even the movies, even those things will start to illustrate something that I think if we actually sit and think about, it's not just movies, right? For example, a lot of people that actually bring out history would actually say that the people were a different color. Like, for example, the Jews. Do you know that we actually have actual historic documents of the Jews? Like, for example, did you know the Jews went into captivity in Portugal?
In
And
Portugal? Yes,
yep,
I knew that. Yes.
that's right. So in Portugal, what's interesting is we actually can see their skull shapes. The reason why is because a lot of the Jews were actually under what was called the Inquisition in 1492. During those times, later on, passing once they had passed a decree to kick all the Moors, which were most of the Arabs, out of the land, and then they also wanted to kick out the Jews. And what happened was they passed a lot of laws and decrees. And one of the decrees is that I'm gonna show you this one. This decree right here. This is a decree. This is written in. Now this was recorded. We have earlier recordings, but this is modern history of the Jews, and this would be after the destruction of Jerusalem. This was written in 1814, and I want to show you what it actually says here about the Jews here. It actually talks about some really interesting information that I think is important to know. Um, Let me just read it for you a little bit on what it said. Now, that was a requirement for the Jews because now they practiced Judaism in Spain. So Spain, I know that usually everyone knows, is up here. So it's a little above Africa, right about there, and they was actually sent into Spain. So they had a little time in Spain and they was going through it. But I want to read you what happened here because during the time they was actually going through a couple different punishments. But I'm gonna let you hear what it says right here. It talks about the Jews. It says they circumcised their children and kept Passover in their house. Informed now the Pope, when the people knew of this, they didn't want them to do those practices. They said it was unlawful for them to do those practices. And so when they was informed of these partial conversions, because they wanted them to convert to um, Catholicism, but because they partially converted, they informed so people knew about it and sudden return
Yes,
to
I've heard of this. These were the ones that were persecuted by the Inquisition.
That's right. That's right. In fact, that's what we see. I'm just gonna you can just like a little bit of that. So the king sent and he said he ordered the Inquisition right there, right, to be watchful. So they was watchful and they punished whoever was basically practicing Judaism. It says basically, I'm gonna get right here. I'm gonna just summarize basically what happened. This is in Spain, so you can see Spain, and it basically let us know that there was 17,000 Jews that actually turned to the Catholic faith. 2,000 rebelled, they refused, and they were burned. They were sent to the flames, and some were sent to dungeons. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The ones that were sent to the dungeons, they actually were liberated. Now, after they was liberated, they was actually told to do a certain thing, and only one people was told to do this thing. They actually was told to wear a red cross upon their clothes. Now, what's important about that red cross, is that no one else in Spain was required to do so, and no one else did so because it actually pointed out a people who they named New Christians. Now, if you look at the definition, New Christians is always towards the Jew. The reason why is because that was the decree that was made on them when they converted. They kept them there if they converted, but they had to wear a red cross. Now, I want to
Yes,
show you.
that's part of it. I
That's
definitely
right.
have read about this. It was the same in Portugal and in their colonies,
That's right.
especially in Goa.
That's right. Exactly. Yep. You got it. You got it. See, and we actually have a ancient. This is an old picture. This is a very very old picture of Portugal. You can see right here. I just want to show you. I want to click this because this old picture of Portugal is a painting of the time of Portugal. And if we actually look closely on it, we can actually see the Moors and the Jews in it because you can see in Portugal we'll have the classic European, and then we have Moors. So these are more Moors right here. You can see some of the Moors here in the back. And we also have Jews here. And the way we know it's Jew because those Jews were actually required to wear a cross. And we can actually see one of them right here. And now notice what we actually see what the Jew looks like. This is a Jew. Now, what's the first thing we actually see with the Jew? We actually notice the red cross, and we actually notice his face being black, just like some of the ones that's walking around near him. We can see that his face is actually black. Now, what's important about that is that that's historically documented, not just in pictures, but in actual historical quotes. Actual historical quotes actually paint the Judean black. That's actually important to know that they actually paint him as a character who was quote unquote swarthy with curly hair. That's actually very important. And the reason why that's important is because we get a lot of alterations throughout history of who people are, and that actually changes things. Okay, let me see. Is there any way you can alter your mic a little bit? They say that it's echoing a bit.
No, I don't know. It's the one that's built into my computer.
Oh, okay. I'll just turn it. Sometimes like that with mine too. I'll just turn it a little down so it doesn't echo too much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So now we all obviously talked about how movies are painting a false picture of people, but what about history? What about when history actually alters the face of people and actually put everyone? Now we got to also remember something. What happened? Now where did they go in Spain? Now, there's a historical document that tells us they actually was sent into Morocco. From here, they were sent downward into Africa, and and then this is where history gets cut off. Not a lot of people know that they didn't go into here and then work their way around and come back up into Europe. Rather, they actually went down into Africa. It's actually recorded they went down into Africa, into these areas. In fact, there was a time when they took their children and they shipped them because Spain actually got a new land called right here. There's a new land that they had took, and I want you to see that this little island, Santo Tome and Principe. This was an island that was owned by the Spain from the Spanish. And then this island, this little island right here, was an island that was featured for a certain group of rebellious Jews. Now, the children that were taken there, they always remain here to this day. To this day, we can actually find those children that actually were originally here. And we can actually find evidence of those children. And I want to show you something because I think we need to let the people that go through it actually speak. And one of the ways that we can actually have people speak is through their DNA. Now, I want you to see this. Not a lot of people actually seen this before. I want to show you that what I'm showing you here is a real genetic study that was taking place. I'm just going to open this so you can see the credentials of the sheet that I'm actually going to show you here. So you can see this is the American Journal of Human Biology. And you can see you got some names right here: Human Genetic Laboratory, University. I'm gonna copy this to show you what this is right here.
So is this about the E1B1?
That's right. So this what you're seeing here, this is a real. You can see they got different. You can see this is a real medical study that you see in here. This is a real medical study. You can see. Not a lot of people actually see this, but yes, this is about the E1B1B, the E1B1A.
That's actually kind of there's something kind of funny about that because what comes to mind is everyone wants to be one. There's like a pun in there.
Everyone wants to be one, yeah.
Everyone wants to be an Israelite.
That's an interesting way to put it, but remember these numbers are actually more as set up as a guess, and the number system is just put there because they think that the Africans were actually the out of Africa idea is actually a theory. The out of Africa idea
that everyone came out of Africa.
Yeah. So that's why they actually assemble it like that, because they think the Africans are first, so they put them as A, and then they put the other Africans as B, and all that stuff all the way up to D. So that's the only reason why.
I kind of thought there was a reason for it. I just thought it was funny that that's the way it looks.
It looks like that, but you can kind of make it like that however you want, or you can make any type of initial. You can see everybody believes America or something like that. It don't matter what you put. You can make your own, But that's not what it says.
What's the one people that everyone has been told are like the most important people on the planet? Israelites.
Right. But I believe in truth. I think that truth should exist. Now, I wouldn't care who it's pointing to. If it's pointing to the European, if it's pointing to the Ashkenaz, if it's pointing to whoever, I would think that truth matters. I think truth actually is important in this world. And if we don't have truth, what do we have? We just have a illustration of a lie, constant continuation for generations to come. And I think we are the generation to stand up for the truth. I think that's what we should do. I think as a generation that has this much knowledge, I think we're responsible for a lot of the evil that a lot of the forefathers had did, because of the forefathers, they actually confused a lot of truth. But we as the children of the oppression, I think that we should actually put ourselves in the shoes of others and consider ourselves to actually want to find truth and establish it. I think once we find truth, if we establish it, what we're doing is actually doing something different than the people of old. Rather, what they did, they took truth and established a lie. And I think that's what this actually does, is reveal the truth. And what I wanted to show you here is that this thing actually talks about, it says basically the Y chromosome haplogroup found in Santo Tome Principe. Now, do you know that they actually went to Santo Tome and Principe? That's what is important. Have you seen any evidences of the people going to Santo Tome Principe? Have you seen that already?
No, but I'm going to see what you have.
Okay, so that's good. That's good, because what I want to do is I want you to hear, because I think it's important that we hear first history. This person I'm going to show you first is a historian. This is his name. I'm gonna show he's a Caucasian. I'm gonna show you what he looks like. You can see some different places where he attends. Right, he does Jewish studies. He's a professor, and you're gonna see him. He's gonna be a historian right here. He's a historian, and I'm gonna show you who this individual is. So if this is the name, Tudor, you can pay attention when he pops up. So I'm gonna show you something on what he says about the land of Africa. Now I'm also gonna show you what Africa means. But first, I want you to hear what he says here because I think it's very interesting.
Some of my recent work, if you read the hybrid report very attentively, you'll have to go to the footnotes. You will see there's got a lot of evidence produced for black Jewish communities in different parts of West Africa, which are not sort of based upon a particular reading of tribal history, let's put it like that, but are based on fairly hard historical fact. And this hard historical fact is the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and from Portugal at the end of the 15th century, subsequent to which a lot of Jews settled, first of all, in northwest Africa, places like Senegal, in the islands, which I'm sure you know about, Saint Tomé and Principe.
Yes, sir.
Principally. And then, less known, along the coast of Guinea, so that in the middle of the 16th century, 1560 to be precise, the Portuguese Archbishop of Goa in India proclaimed that Judaism is a kind of horrible illness which has killed millions of people throughout history, and the result of being Jewish was to be covered in shame, to fail in everything, even among the black Jews of Guinea. So, in other words, the existence of Jews in the western part of Africa was absolutely accepted at the time by the likes of the Portuguese Archbishop of Goa.
So that was a historian that actually told you in the land of Africa, in the west of
Aegean
Africa.
connection. For centuries, merchants from the Aegean had been
snap.
traveling to
We
southern
paused it.
Canaan.
We don't need that. Go back. So what you just saw was a historian tell you that in the west coast of Africa, where now Guinea, this is the Gulf of Guinea. Guinea is a new name to Africa. Now, it's important to now when I say Africa, it's important to know what I'm saying when I say Africa. The word Africa was actually not giving to the whole continent as a whole. That was a certain people in Africa that were called Africans. Now, the people that was called Africans were actually, let me actually show you, they was actually Shemites for the sake of understanding. Let me actually open up a different note and show you that. Now, that was a historian. Now, if a historian agrees that there were black Jews in the west coast of Africa, where Guinea is, and he's telling you that that's what we actually know, why is it that we're painting a picture of the Jews as being white? Now, you're going to actually find out that there was a conversion that happened. But before I even show you that, I want you to see a little bit of what Africa is, because when we call people Africa, we're actually being ignorant. It's kind of like if someone was.
Can I make an educated guess before you
Yeah, go ahead.
go into that?
Yeah,
I've heard of the Khazarian. So is that what you're talking about?
We actually have a genetic report that actually tells us that they're Turks.
Oh, I've heard of that too.
You heard of that? So what
Yes,
I'm gonna do,
yes.
I'm actually gonna show you a geneticist that actually says it, a European geneticist that does it by himself. He actually does the study himself, and he actually identifies the haplogroup J as a Turkish lineage, which is connected to I, which is a clear European lineage. And originally, back in the past, they started together. But what I want you to see right here is an ancient map. Now, this map is a very old map. Now, when you want to look at maps, you want to look at maps that are older than the what's the word I'm looking for? Older than the 1800s, because there was a Berlin divide that had happened. This is actually according to the world of Herodotus. Now, are you familiar with Herodotus' work at all?
He was, I've never read his stuff, but he was a historian. He seems to write quite a bit.
Yes, that's right. Amen. This was actually early on. This is about the time before the Greeks got on the picture. You can see it's about, I'll say, the 400 BC. Just give it a round number on there. More precise, obviously, 484 to 425 BC. Some of these things. And in the world, they actually didn't know. Guess what they actually called Africa? They actually called Africa Libya. Now, the story behind it is actually historically recorded. Now, do you know about the historian Flavius Josephus?
Oh yes, I've heard of him.
Okay, so you know that he's a first century historian?
Yes.
So the first century historian Flavius Josephus, I'm actually closed that one because that was an older one. He actually wrote something very important that historians know. Historians know it to be true, but you'll never see someone bring it up, because if you bring it up, you actually have to consider who all are actually African, because we actually know that the African, based on Flavius Josephus' writings, is actually from Abraham. We actually know that for a fact. Look at what Flavius Josephus says, and we actually have another book another one, History of the Moors of Spain. That's one of the Moors of Spain in 1841. That's a different one. But I want you to hear this one in Flavius Josephus. So this right here is the complete works of Flavius Josephus. This is going to be book 1, chapter 15. I want you to hear what it says right here. So are you familiar with the Bible?
Oh yes, I am.
Amen. So you know Abraham, after Sarah and Hagar, he had got with another woman. All right, her name was Keturah. Keturah, she basically brought forth some other kids, right? And actually, those kids, Abraham, we actually see it recorded in the scriptures that he sent them to the east. We know that because if we look at just some verses, I don't know if I planted the verses on here. Let's see, right here. Look what it says right here in Genesis 25:6. But the sons of the concubines, because with his wife Keturah right there, and all these sons right here, he says, which Abraham did have. Abraham gave gifts, and then watch what he did here. He sent them away from Isaac, his son, while he yet lived eastward to the east country. Now, if we're in the land of Israel, right? All we have to do is go to the land of Israel. And what we actually had to do is just go eastward from Israel. And the east is Saudi Arabia. Eastward is Saudi Arabia. And that's where you find Abraham's children, in Saudi Arabia. Now, people will say they always been there, but let's actually see what the historian Flavius Josephus, a first century historian and a Judean, actually says about this historic event. Now, watch what he says here, because it's actually very important. And most historians actually know this, but they would never talk about it. But let me show you what he says here. I'm going to go up, and he says this. So he's talking about that same event, but he gives us a little more detail on exactly where they went. He says that Abraham conceived and settled colonies, and he took possession. And notice where his kids end up going. The country of Arabia, the Happy. Now, that's what it was called. Now, Arabia just means a land of the Arabs. That IA just means Arab land. It says Arabia, the Happy, as far as it reaches the Red Sea. So it's just letting you know that you see the Red Sea right here. It's just letting you know they had all of this as far as the reaches of the Red Sea. So basically all the way over here, all of this was theirs. So they owned Arabia. And that's what we see in the scriptures. It's important to note that that area was filled with Arabs, what they call Arabs, because they was in Arabia. It says as far as it reaches to the Red Sea. And it was told about that this Orphrene. Now, who is Orphrene? Orphrene actually is a son of one of the sons of Abraham. Now, he actually is going to have a son, but Orphrene, it says that he made war against Libya. Now, it's important to know maps. During the time of these times, we actually have to know that the map, Libya was all the upper area of Africa. So he ended up going and fighting with the upper area of Africa, where you see Libya here. All this was Libya. Everything up here at the top was Libya. So at that time, it's kind of like if I said I went to make war with America, right? Let's talk about all of America, not just a state. But Libya actually was considered this whole portion up here. So he went to make war with Libya. And it says, and took it and that his grandchildren, when they inhabited it, called it from his name Africa. Now, guess what that means? The African are actually Shemitic. The African are actually sons of Abraham, which are recorded by a historian. Now, this is one historian, but we actually have it recorded in multiple copies of historians. And it just talks about a little more details. It goes a little more details on his sons and everything. And it says how they took the land and whatnot when they fought against. They was actually helping a guy named Hercules, who was Greek, but that's another subject. So you can see Orphrene and his sons, they basically took the country. It says right here, the country of Africa took its name, just for the sake of understanding. And we can see that actually recorded by other historians. This is actually 1841. In 1841, it actually records about the Moorish Jews, Moorish Arabs. Now, Moor, the word Moor actually derives from the word black, but it can sometimes mean someone who is Arabian. So it can be used for someone that's lighter skinned too, that is Arabian, but is usually seen as Moorish. Now, the Moorish people that went into Spain, a lot of people thought they was just African, but African, now we confirm that African are actually the Arabs. Now, it's also important to know what it says right here. I want to show you what it actually says in these writings. Now, I'm going to read it right here because this one has the highlights. So I just want you to hear the highlights. Someone by the name of Milik Yefredrik. I don't know why I would say that weird. Farik. Milik Farik, king of Arabia, Felix. Now, it's important to know what he means, the Arabia Felix. Where is the Arabia Felix, right? Because Arabia Felix, now we're talking about a certain location that's going to be more Pacific. It's going to be more like in the corner right here. This is going to be the Arabia Felix. I think I have a picture for a more accurate look right here. I'm just going to click it, and then you're going to see a people here as well. You see the Arabia Felix. This is an old map. I just want you to know how old this map actually is, because I think it's important to get information very accurately. This is 1835. So this map was made in the 1800s. This is a real map right here, 1800 map of the what they call Europe, Asia, and Africa world right here. So you're going to see what this map actually looks like. And I'm just going to zoom here so you can see what this is saying here. You're just going to see an actual real historic document actually documents to you what's actually going on. Can't get really zoomed there, but I can just use this for a more proper zoom. So you can see, we're going to look at these people. There's going to be a group of people here. You see that word right there, Sa-bi, right there. We're going to look at that word real fast because it's important concerning who was there. Because it's important to have, sometimes it's important to have two witnesses because, you can't just take one word of one person, right? It says, he was a king of the Arabia Felix who conducted a people called Sabi or Saabi, right? Or however you say that for the sake of understanding. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Sabi for the sake of understanding. In Libya. Now, remember, we already addressed where Libya is. And just to make sure we know, these are old maps too. So this is an old map and this is some older maps. Remember, Libya is actually all of this area, right? This was based on the designs of Herodotus when he designed the area. So you can see right here, Libya was all of this. Anything under Libya was called Ethiopia. It wasn't called Africa at the time. Anything under it was called the land of the blacks or the land of the darker skinned people. And the reason why is because we see that very early on. We can see that in the scriptures that there were certain types of people, but they knew exactly who they were. It was a certain group of them. But let's go down and hear the rest of it.
I imagine you've heard of the country of Zanzibar?
Banzabar?
No, Zanzibar.
Zanzibar, I'm not super familiar with it exactly.
The word comes, or the name of the country comes from land of blacks, because the Arabs called the people Zanj.
Oh, okay, I see. That makes sense.
Zanzibar.
That makes sense, and that's what they would do. They would name lands based off of what they see to make it easy, so that they know what's going on in that land. That's right. And you can see right here. So those people who are it says right here, who conducted a people called Sabi into Libya. Now he actually moved. You can see right here on the map. We can see those people in Saudi Arabia right here, Sabi. He conducted a people called Sabi, and he moved them into what is called Africa, Libya. You see what it says right there, Africa, Libya, and you see how it says Africa. The word Africa is actually a Egyptian word and a Arabic word for the sake of understanding. The Egyptian word actually means motherland, and the Arabian word. Let me actually go up to that. right here. So right here, the Egyptian word means motherland, and the word in Arabia is like Afrik in that way. It says which actually means to separate, divide, and conquer. That's what the land was for them to separate and divide and to conquer. And there was people down there. They was actually taking the land from the people actually down there, and they actually moved them down. And historians actually know this. They know the original people that was in that land were pushed southward, and we can find their DNA. That's the A and B line. The A and B line is a certain people that were separate from the Shemites, but they were pushed downward into Africa, all the way at basically the cone, the bottom of the Africa. Also, notice what it says right here. It says, he made himself master of that country, established his followers there, and gave it the name Africa. You see what it's saying right there? So he made sure the name Africa set on there. And you can see that these people were the Moorish tribes. They were actually the ones who were the Moorish tribes. And that's what we actually see, that the Moorish tribes actually said that they were them. And the person here even notes that, but without enlarging upon these ancient statements, let it suffice to say that nearly certain grounds exist for the belief that the original Moors was Arabian. You see what it's saying right there? So he knew that the original Moors had great evidence for being Arabian. Now, what's important about that is that, do you know that we actually know that most all of the Arabians have a certain Y chromosome? Why is that important? Because we know that the people, now it's important to know that Keturah's sons and daughters, they merged with Ishmael. Ishmael actually is the one that ruled over those things. He actually ruled over them because the children, a lot of the children of Abraham actually were destroyed, because we know that in the Bible a lot of the sons of Keturah were actually destroyed and the females were absorbed. That would actually cause the Y chromosome to be dominant. The Y chromosome of Ishmael is actually the dominant one over the people, and that's important to know. And that line, we can actually find a pure line in Africa, and it's an E1B1B. E1B1B is actually seen in the Arabians. Now they had their own distinct look. Now you probably know about the Somali and stuff like that. Those are actually
Can I just mention something real quick before
Go
you
ahead.
go on?
Go ahead.
Some of those Arabs aren't really the real Arabs, right?
Which one's the lighter skin, darker skin?
Yeah, the lighter skinned ones are not the real Arabs.
That's right. Go ahead and continue. You're
And
actually speaking.
the reason why I say that has to do not with any personal reason. It's because of the name Arab. The name Arab actually means dark and dusky.
That's right. See, you're
Because if you look at the Semitic languages, the word for the first hours of the day in Hebrew is Arab or Arab.
Interesting.
So
go ahead. You know a little more on that.
Arab is like the first hours of the day.
Yeah, that's right, and that's important to know. That's good that you know that. That's actually good that you know that, because that type of information, that's the stuff. I don't know how you got that information. I don't know if you had to like where'd you hear that?
I actually have a Hebrew dictionary. It's something that I heard before, but I had to remember myself. So
that's really good. What is actually your dictionary called?
It's a new world. I'll go get it. Let me just go get it.
Cool. And if you can look up the word him, I'm just curious to see something in your book. If you can look up the word him,
Okay.
See something.
So it's the Webster's New World Hebrew Dictionary, and I'll show it to you because one of my favorite things is languages. So
yeah, you can go ahead and show your screen.
Here. There you go. This is it. And it was in here that I was able to find what I just told you. But also I used to be friends with a guy. This is it. I used to know a guy called Judah Nazareth, and I know a lot about the whole Hebrew Israelite thing from him.
That's really cool. I think that's really cool.
It's just unfortunate we had a little
fallout.
Falling out.
It's unfortunate to me. I think the history is pure, but I think a lot of the ways of people, I think their ways we gotta correct. I think a lot of people, because of their meanness.
Give me a sec.
Go ahead. So for the sake of information, I just want to show everyone this. So it's good that this brother, I'm going to reach out, because I don't think that it's good that a lot of the communities of people that actually are Israelites are actually causing offense to the history, because that's what caused people not to want to see the history and the facts of these things and see what's actually going on. Because the people in Africa are actually called Africans because the real Africans are actually going to be Arabians. That's actually these are going to be the real Africans. Now these are the ones who officially were called Africans. Everyone else was called Ethiopians and what have you. We can actually prove that by looking at ancient maps. When we look at ancient maps, one of the first things you actually notice is that Africa wasn't called Africa. In fact, it was a mystery to the European world. It was a mystery. It was a complete mystery, because that's usually what they were focused on Upper Europe and Asia. But anything like Arabia, you can even see Arabia is not, you don't have much of Arabia. You can see Babylon's right there, that it get cut off right there. And if you look at it on the map, Babylon's right there. So they don't really know that much of Arabia. All they know is like this much. And it's not like Arabians will let Rome in and say, "Oh, come have a tour, come in and examine our land," right? And that's why a lot of lands, like it's like the time of Jericho, when the Israelites came in, they said they sent spies. They sent spies to spy out our land. So a lot of times they would know, especially if you have a completely dark-skinned people, to have a lighter-skinned person come in there, they'll know what's going on there. That's why when Messiah went into Africa, right? He went into Africa, right, and dwelled in the land of Egypt. He dwelled with some people that were darker skinned, and we know in that time Egypt was dark skinned. It's important to know that even though the time of the Greeks were going on, and you can see a lot of the sayings with Cleopatra, with some of the Greeks, right? The Greeks were doing what they're doing with Cleopatra and whatnot. But we actually get a clear understanding of what the Egyptians looked like during that time, because we got pictures of what they look like. So Messiah actually went into Egypt and dwelt with these dark-skinned Egyptians. So he actually dwelt in his land. And that's a constant thing, that every time something happened with Israel, they don't go upwards. They would go downwards. They would always go downwards and try to hide and sojourn in Egypt. That was one of the biggest problems with Israel. Sean, welcome back. I wanted you to look at the word him. I was just curious. I don't know if it's going to have the saying there, but I was just curious to see if it would have a certain definition for the word him on your definition.
Ham means hot. If you use the kind where it's a strong H sound, or hum, it's hot.
Oh, is it like giving you like the Hebrew words? I was talking about like him, like as in the son of Noah.
Yeah. That's the funny thing. Can you tell me what the letter is for the first letter in the name Ham?
The first letter? Well, if we go to like the how you say the Hebrew, it'll probably be a little different.
Because the word for hot has a strong H in it. Which if you pronounce it, it would be hum if you pronounce it not like a strong H. If you pronounce it more like a k sound, then that's where you have word hum means hot.
Is that like the name for him?
Yes, I think so. Let me check. Let me just check and see.
Like it'd be more like cham, like ham, like cham, like cham.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna see just to be sure.
Yeah, I know, like because a lot of words like the h sound is actually ch, like ch sound. That's actually what it would be.
Yeah. It's like a k.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see. Here it is. It's a sound. So I was wrong. It's like
com. Yep, com sound.
So that definitely is the word for hot.
And does it say about anything about him? I don't know if that's like a dictionary that gives you the dictionary of him.
I could look it up other places because I definitely know how to find that.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I also know about that, because it's important to know there's a lot of dictionaries that would tell you him is the father of the dark races, such as
Mizraim. Quite a bit.
Yep, Mizraim and everything, but not the Negroes. There's a different people. Like for example, when you say Negro, in the sense these were be called Negroid, for the sake of understanding. You would call them in a sense Negroid. You wouldn't call them.
I used to know someone who loved to use the word Negroid because it wouldn't make him racist.
I mean, in a sense, if when someone understands the definition, Negroid isn't actually racist. It's just actually considering someone who is actually close to the Niger River, for the sake of understanding.
But this was someone who most certainly was a racist.
Oh,
Scottish guy, loser.
See, that's what we have in the world. We have a lot of ignorant people. That's what happens. It's just something that happens.
I'm looking up the Ham thing in the Bible Hub dictionary.
So you notice how you just learn that a lot of the history that we have today is well known, but it's not being brought to life. As you can see with just the Arabs alone, and this picture right here, you see this picture that you see right here. This picture
I see it.
is a Nubian archer, but did you know a lot of the Nubians were actually Arabs? Majority of the You can see a majority of the Arabs forced to return. They were wounded. But if you actually now remember, Ishmael actually had 12. What's the word I'm looking for? He had 12 brothers, right? They supposed to be 12 tribes in Ishmael. And if we actually notice, there was an invasion that happened from the Celtic Turks. Now, if you know about the Ottoman Empire, right?
Oh yeah, it was big. It was
reigned for
one of the biggest empires in the world. And
that's right.
The rise of modern Turkey actually sank it. Well,
that's right.
Sank to an extent.
Now, do you know that they took the land of the Arabians? They took the stronghold of Africa, and they also took the land of Israel. The Turks, when they came down, they actually took, like you said, all of Turkey, all of Greece mostly.
Yes.
And then they also took, obviously, the Romans. They took out the Romans. These were very strong people, these Turks. They were very, very strong people, and they had taken this land. And what they did was a thing called Turkification. Now, Turkification is actually changing a lot of the culture to fit a tailored idea of the Turks, because there was so many of them.
So the spoken language became Turkish, but they used an alphabet similar to Arabic.
That's right. That's right.
Yes,
because a lot of them converted to Muslims. They actually converted to Islam. A lot of them.
Yeah, they used to worship heaven, but then they became Muslims.
That's right, exactly. And then that's what they did. They started to absorb a lot of cultures, but alter it the way that they seen how it fit and everything. Do you know what also they did? They also started to not care a lot about history and who peoples are. And what they would do is kind of merge and blend with the people. So they actually started to blend with the Arabs, and you can actually find that E line in them. You can find that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy about that is that at one point there actually was a group of Jews who actually converted to Islam but retained some of their Jewish customs.
Yep,
You've heard of them?
I have not heard exactly what exactly group are they?
They're the normally I know this, but they were big in Turkey before the modernization of Turkey.
Okay.
So
I guess it depends on what type of group. Like for example, now what's important is the J.
I know what they were. I remember the Donme.
Donme, okay.
The Donme were converts to Islam because their leader converted to Islam. They actually were the followers of a guy who proclaimed himself the Messiah.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of the Sabbateans?
I have not.
The Sabbateans were like a heretical Jewish cult. And their leader was supposed to be the Messiah. His name was Sabbatai Zevi.
It sounds like they're not a group to believe. It sounds like they was a group that made the decision.
This guy converted to Islam, so all of his followers made the choice to do the
Oh,
same
I
thing.
know what you're talking about. Because they had to explain why their leader converted. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that one. As soon as you started saying that, I didn't know that's what it was called. Yep, I remember that. Yep. They basically, it was a big thing where they would basically had to try to explain why he converted, and then they had to basically try to justify it. But then they knew that he wasn't who he was. A lot of them left the faith when they realized that he was just an imposter.
And the guy that I feel the worst for was named Nathan Gaza, because he was the guy that promoted him.
That's right.
Like,
It's crazy. It's crazy. A lot of them were actually kind of just spreading him around, spreading different things that were about him around.
So that's crazy. History is my favorite thing. Culture is my favorite thing. So
then you'll love the this page. We love to touch on history. We love to touch on the actual facts of things, because I think factual things is what this generation needs. I think we need to really start addressing some of the false narratives that's going on, because when is history going to come alive until we actually dig and grab these ancient sources and bring them forth? And a lot of times, it may sound controversial, but when it's actually truth, maybe the controversy is that the people made a lie. I think that that's important, that we ourselves remember that the people actually made a lie, and that's what this is. I wanted to show you some evidences that actually shows.
There is no issue. I have no issue with people who want to practice Judaism no matter who they are. In fact,
well, that's what I wanted to talk about. It's not just about subscribing to Judaism. I think it's actually about the truth. That's what I actually think it's about. Like, for example, do you know that we actually know the Y chromosome of the Turks, because we can trace the Turks all the way back to the land where they originated from, right? And we can actually see their Y chromosome. I just want to show you a video. So I want to show you something of a real geneticist. Now, this geneticist, his name is Dr. Nathaniel. He is a real geneticist. He has many books, a lot of nominees and awards and stuff and whatnot. But I want to show you what he says here. I think it's important to hear actual geneticists when they do these studies,
a subsection,
because they take a lot of time out of their day to really give us some solid truth. Not just because we got historical references, but it's also good to get genetic verifications. I want you to see what he says about the Jews. He did a study. Can we identify the Jews genetically? And I want you to see a certain genetic line of the Jews. Now, if you know, there's a certain Y chromosome that they say is of the Kohanim. They call it the J chromosome. And he actually does a study on that. And I want you to see what he actually finds out when he does a study on this so-called Kohanim chromosome, which is J. I want you to see what he actually says here, because I think it's important.
The geographic extent of group J today. So who are the Jews? Who are modern day Jewish people? Well, it seems that a section, I should say, a subsection of modern Jews, along with many other Middle Eastern peoples, and some Europeans, like Greeks and other Balkan Peninsula folks, and Italians, and even some Spaniards at a low percentage, and even some Indians, all share a common Turkish heritage. They trace some of their origins to Central Asia. Not all of these people, but if you're in the Middle East, a heavy percentage of you do trace your origins via Group J to the Turkish people. And what we've seen in this episode is, once again, Central Asia seems to play this dominant role in the world history of peoples. We've seen other Central Asian lineages, R1A, R1B, due to Mongols, Magyars. Well, here the Turkish people are showing up in the Middle East. They have a dominant presence. They're about a quarter of the peoples in India. The fingers of Central Asia, even though they don't necessarily occupy much attention in the history of Western civilization, politically they don't play a huge role in Europe, but in terms of their DNA, massive echo in Europe, in the Middle East, significant imprint.
You know what's crazy about Central Asia?
What?
You probably heard things about the quote-unquote Illuminati.
Yeah, I heard about the Illuminati.
You know what the inspiration for that was?
What was it?
It was an Islamic or a quote-unquote Islamic order that rose in Central Asia, like Afghanistan and countries around that one.
Yeah.
They actually created the very first Illuminati called the Roshaniya, or the Roshaniya.
I'll actually, you know how to spell that?
Yes, I do. It's ROSHINIYA.
Niya. That's an interesting word. I'm gonna look that
What
up
it
because
means light in Central Asian languages. So that's where you get the word Illuminati.
it looks like these were Turks
They were
because it says the Khan Rebellion. The word Khan.
no, that's not it. There's not a lot of sources on this because
Okay, so
they were
this right here is different.
Yes, these were a secret society. They had almost like Masonic degrees.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have
They
to.
also
It's probably
didn't allow
underground.
when they couldn't verify.
I'll look it up. I'll just save it here, and I will look it up.
Yeah, but they were a crazy group, and they were the inspiration, I believe, for Adam Weishaupt's group.
Yeah, it looks like you're probably right. It says in the 17th century, another Illuminati. Now it says another Illuminati organization appeared in the mountains of Afghanistan by the name of Roshaniya. Now it may be now it may not be the origin of it, but it definitely played a part in his own set. It definitely seems like it played its part in his own set.
And their goals were nearly identical, so that's how we know they were the original. Because what they sought to do is eliminate state religion, personal property, and other things that the Illuminati would also do.
That definitely sounds like Turkification. That's definitely
yes.
To me sounds like a direct form of some Turkification. So I can believe it. I believe that is definitely possible that the Turks definitely probably had a major part in the Illuminati. That I definitely agree. I would definitely agree with that because I can see that being evident. I can see that being evident.
And then if you go into Germany today, there actually are a lot of Turks in that country.
That's right. And if you notice, remember the geneticist, he actually confirmed that J is majorly in the Middle East and that this whole area was Turkified. You can see that when I say Turkified, that major J actually is merged with a lot of people. And a lot of people in the Middle East has that J in it. For example, this is what it looks like. I want to show you. Now, if you notice, do you see any, if you look at the genetics of the people over there, you're actually not going to see much of a difference. And it's because there's not much of a difference. They're actually pretty much the same people. And geneticists note it. Geneticists actually note that the people in the Middle East, almost all of them are the same, but they've been Turkified for the sake of understanding. This right here is the Y chromosome of the Turks. You can see J1 and J2, R1b. You can see E1B1B because of the merging with the real Ishmaelites, right? You're gonna see all those things there. And usually, if you know what this actually what it looks like when a woman actually runs a society. Usually, when a woman runs a society, the men's line doesn't matter, and people start to mix and mingle. Now, have you ever heard that someone's half and like if someone mixes, like if someone's white and they mix with a black person, they'll say they're half. They're half mixed, right? That's not actually how it works in genetics. In genetics, when someone mixes, they get a portion of their DNA. The father is actually, when the father goes with a woman, his Y chromosome is unaltered. But if he, being a father, has a son, and then his son ends up basically merging with another person, like for example, a woman, and then we actually get his seed becoming later on another male, and then that male actually is going to basically end up merging with some more people, and as it constantly merges and merges and merges, you're going to get some point where you get females, and the females going to merge with different males, and then those males, and you get that's what you start to get a blend of Y chromosomes. Now it's extremely hard for a whole society to get a mix. Now when I say extremely hard, if they are actually Israelites and they have a pure one, if they have a pure line, they would have one major line. You'll see a larger one, and that's what people look for. The larger the
Y.
Y.
Do you want to hear something kind of crazy?
Go ahead.
You know there are Turks in China.
Yep, that's right.
So
that's
there
true.
are Turkic peoples even in a country that most people would call homogenous. Most people don't know there's 56 ethnic groups in China.
Yep, that's
where
the Turks came from.
Chinese.
This is where the Turks actually came. They was around here where Mongolia was, and this is actually where they came from. They shot out from this area, from the over here on the east, and they shot to the west, and it's history recorded. They came in from the top. They came over here and they came in, they hit Rome, and that's what they called the barbarians, because they hit Rome. And at first they didn't know who they were. They didn't know who exactly they were, so they called them all barbarians. And some came down from this way and took the Islamic powers. These were the Seljuk Turks. The Seljuk Turks came down here and took the Islamic powers down here. And some of the upper Turks, like the Khazars and things, Avars and stuff like that, and their kin, they came up here and took a lot of these areas. And that's where you get the land of France. A lot of the land of France is actually going to be related to a lot of these things. And the Germans right here, you have a lot, and that's where you get the Rhineland idea, right? Where the Ashkenazi that were up here, where Poland is, and all that stuff, they were actually going to be the people that today as the same line as the J as the Turks. And the reason why you want to pay attention to the Y chromosome is because the larger the Y chromosome, the more major the line. So you can see this actually counts as one. This J1 and the J2 counts as a J line. So you got a large percentage of that. You also got a large R, 2 R's right here. So that's already about 40% right there, 40, 50%. And that's what you want to see. You want to see those large ones, because those large ones are going to tell you who they originally were. And so the J is actually Turkish. The J line is actually a Turkish lineage, which is very important because that's found largely, this is an Ashkenazi Y chromosome, is found largely in the Ashkenazi. The J lineage, as he said, is actually a Turkish lineage. And that's really important to note, because when you see things like this, do you know what you're actually seeing? You're seeing history slip out. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing history slip out. But why is it that, remember, we was talking about movies. Why is it that it's okay for the movies to do it, but it's also okay for the history to do it? Why is it okay is it ever okay for history to give false history? I don't think so.
No, I don't think it ever.
Then we go back to
right. And I think you're a pretty wise person. So I wanted to have a holy conversation with you, because I think talking about these things historically and accurately, I feel like even this geneticist, he knows that is actually a hidden. He says he makes a series called The Hidden History of the World. He actually makes an episode where he's actually basically bringing genetic facts to who peoples are. And I want you to hear what he says about the I and the J here, on what
letter,
it
number,
actually
letter, so
belongs
forth,
to.
as you march downward to the modern era through the tree. In 1800 BC, the major European lineage, I should say the major, what I've called the indigenous European lineage, group I, and the major Turkish lineage, group J, are one. They have not separated. If you look at the family tree, what would become what I'm calling indigenous Europe, and what would become the Turkish people that would be up here in Central Asia, then come marching back through the Middle East in the late era, in the AD time period. On the Y chromosome family tree, they are joined. So who were they?
So now that you heard, now the reason why I want you to see this, because now I want you to see the genetic study that I put aside, because I want you to first see the historic evidence and the actual have evidence from actual real geneticists that what I'm showing you is not just an idea, but it's something that you'll never see in main media. Now, remember how I just confirmed to you that that historian said that the Jews went into Principe. In fact, I want you to see that they themselves even write the history. Here's the introduction to the actual study. And remember how I showed you that this was an actual study. I just want to show again, just for anyone that's watching, for the sake of information, to show that when I'm not trying to pull a fast one. You can see right here, we can click and look at the site, and we can get the information and different things like that. You can look at the sites and all these different things and whatnot. This one, not so. Right here, you can see, let's see, college right here, the library. And then we had looked up this university right here. And you can see they're going to actually talk about a couple things. I'm going to close this. And obviously, I can give you the source too if you want to look at it. But let me show you something, what they talk about this right here. So they just talk about the Jewish, they're trying to find the Jewish ancestry. So they're testing the Y chromosome. Let me go down right here in the introduction. Let me actually open this, because I want you to hear what they're going to say here first before I actually read the results of who they test of the Jews in San Tome. Now remember, like I said, the Jews in San Tome didn't leave, and they know it. Watch what it says about San Tome. Santo Islands were probably uninhabited. So that means no one was there, uninhabited at the time of the Portuguese discovery in 1471. Soon after that, the first settlers took place in 1486 by, what's that, Joel de Pavane, something like that, Pava, something like that. One of the basically someone from Portugal, right? It says who took with him. Now notice what he took with him. I'm just gonna say, I don't know how you say that fancy A right there. Joe Oi.
Oh, it's like a slightly nasalized A, so you would say like Joao de Paiva.
Joao de Paiva. I like that. I'll just say that. Joao de Paiva. I'll just say that's it. That works for me. By Joao de Paiva, who took with him many Jews. Right? Now notice who he took with him. Many Jews. Remember, it was uninhabited and Jews were there. And remember, we heard the historian say this. Remember, he said there were black Jews down there. And remember, he was a Caucasian. He was a Caucasian historian. This is the one that I showed you right here, the British historian, right? The writer, broadcaster, and whatnot. I just showed you him when he's talking about the history of the Jews because he's just doing some study in history of the Jews. And notice what he said. Remember how I showed you what he said? How the Jews went into San Tomé. This is also telling you that the Jews went into San Tomé. But watch what it says about here. It was uninhabited, and this person brought Jews into San Tomé. One of the most controversial episodes of this colonization is the forced migration of Jewish children in 1492. Now, 1492 is the year when they actually signed a decree to kick the Moors and the Jews out of Spain. That's also the year that when what's his name went to America, right? Columbus and whatnot. It says,
Columbus. People don't know that there were actually Jews who went with Columbus.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And we can actually see that they was actually darker skinned too, because they talk about the dark skinned companions that were with Columbus. It says the information about the occurrence is scarcely and diversely, basically diverge. I know I'm saying that weird, between Jewish and Christian historians. So it's basically saying this thing is actually being debated nowadays. But watch what happens here. Around 2,000 children and teenagers were taken from their family, forcefully baptized, and you can find the actual historic evidence for these things, that they were forcefully baptized and sent to basically an island, for the sake of understanding, so that they could be away from the Jewish faith, right? Just like I showed you how they were trying to change the Jews, a lot of them converted to Catholicism. They says grew up Christian with a Christian education and contributed to the population of the new territory. The reason why they contributed to it because that's where the Portuguese settled, and you also would have the Jews there settling. So they're going to contribute to the population of that territory. One of the main aims of the Portuguese.
Can I say something real quick? I just want to point out how wrong it is that they forced baptism on these people.
Exactly.
I mean, they clearly did something that they weren't supposed to do.
Exactly. And that's not even how baptism works. Baptism, you got to believe and choose.
Yeah, you choose it.
But they had so much power and control, they wanted to do it forcefully. They wanted to do it by their own power, their own will.
And there's a word for people who are forced into baptism. I forget what it's called, but it's there's a word in Hebrew for it.
Probably is. But let's continue. Watch what it says right now. Right here, that how you say that Joai or AO. Joao. That's really interesting. Joao. That person, right? It says that he's a king. He actually is one of the kings. It says Joao, Portuguese King Joao III. It says several documents. Now that's because right here they're gonna have sources. Several documents confirm that many of these children survived. Now the Jewish children survived. That's great because you know what we can do? Genetic testing on them. It says, and along with other settlers, it says mainly of African origin. Now they say that they look like they have African origin. Did you know that actually a Roman leader actually said that the Jews look like they are from Ethiopia? There's actually just like a little piece of that. Mainly of African origin, settled the process of, basically I'm gonna go down a little bit right here. It just talks about that they were called new Christians and everything. But let's get right to it because it's just talking about this group here. Let's get right to it. I'm gonna show you the genetic study now. Watch what it says here. Actually, let me go up a little, or right here. I want you to see this. I'm going to click this. So now you're going to see the real genetic study on those people. You're going to see the real genetic study on the actual people. And remember, I showed you, I verified that there's a real genetic study, a real college, real laboratory. And this is a study that not a lot of people actually see, but is a real study on the real Jews that were sent to Portugal. We know that they're the ones from Portugal because we can find some certain things in them. It says haplogroup, basically of the Jews that descended or the descents from where you see right there, Sao Tome. These are going to be the Jews from Sao Tome. And they actually tested 246 individuals. And this is what they found. They actually found them to contain some European Y chromosomes in them. That's because of mixing. And you also notice that a large portion, a massive portion, actually 86%, is actually E1B1A. And these are the Jews that actually went to São Tomé from Portugal. And the way that we actually know that these are the ones that went from Portugal and these wasn't just some random people that just went into the land is because this right here is going to show you that they also have right here the second most common haplogroup in São Tomé, Príncipe, is R1B. Only 8% though. That's very tiny, and that's important. When people mix, you don't get half of the genetics. You don't get like half and half. Rather, you get just a small portion of it, and it's very tiny usually. And as they constantly mix, it gets higher and higher. But when they first few times they mix, it's just going to be small. And notice what they say it came from: a typical haplogroup from Western Europe, most likely carried by Portuguese settlers, suggesting their genetic contribution to this population. What does that mean if they have a mix of the Portuguese settlers in there? The reason why they got that mix of Portuguese settlers in there, that means that they aren't people who migrated there. But as it says, the most frequent haplogroup is E3A. That's E1B1A, and that's 84%. That's 84.2%. Also the most widespread clad in sub-Saharan Africa, and by far the most frequent one in West African populations. Now remember I showed you what that historian said in the west of Africa was found Jews. He told you that there were Jews in the west of Africa. Now right here he actually lets us know that that's what's found. And you know what Y chromosome during the slave trade was actually mainly taken? It wasn't a mix of E1B1B. It wasn't a mix of E1B1A, or it wasn't a mix of A or B, but it was all E1B1A. That's actually what was taken in the slave trade was E1B1A. And these L's right here in E1B1A, they commonly have these L lines. These are just a female line, but I'm not going to talk about that. It just talks about the female line that we know that this is the same group. But you can see right here, this is a large portion that actually shows us that this E1B1A is found in the children of Principe and São Tomé. So now, one more time, I just want to show you, just for the sake of information, to show that I love you. I just want you to know that I'm giving you truth because I want you to know that this is truth. But I want you to hear what this historian says one more time. I want you to hear exactly what he says.
Some of my recent work, if you read the hybrid very attentively, you'll have to go to the footnotes. You will see there's got a lot of evidence produced for black Jewish communities in different parts of West Africa, which are not sort of based upon a particular reading of tribal history, let's put it like that, but are based on fairly hard historical fact. And this hard historical fact is the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and from Portugal at the end of the 15th century, subsequent to which a lot of Jews settled, first of all, in northwest Africa, places like Senegal, in the islands, which I'm sure you know about, São Tomé and Príncipe.
Yes, sir.
Principally. And then, less known, along the coast of Guinea.
Now you heard what he just said. Now he just said also another word. Now remember how I showed you Africa was not called Africa at first? Now, did you know Guinea, all of the west coast of Africa was actually called Guinea? Guinea was a word that was actually given to that area when it was taken by the Portuguese. If you look at the word Guinea, right? And the reason, and understand I'm not trying to like boast or anything. I want you to know that the history is confirmed. Is without a doubt that the history is true. The genetics match, guinea pig. The genetics match, the history match, and historians agree with it. But why is it that we're painting a picture of the Jews as white? If we know that in the area of this, and now this small portion, this is, you need to look at an older map. They'll say that this is Guinea, but I'm gonna show you that Guinea is actually a larger portion of Lower Africa. You got to look at older map, like a 1500 map of the coast of Guinea. I don't know if I find one right now. Kind of like this one right here. Here's a decent one right here. You can see Guinea is an older map, most likely. We can see right here. In fact, it is. I'm familiar with this map. There's an older map right here. I'm just gonna click it. You can see right here. This is actually Guinea. When they took the area of Guinea, this is actually where they placed the Jews. When they sent the Jews down, because guess who owned up here? The Africans. The actual Arabians owned up here, so they couldn't put the Jews up here. Though they came here, they put them down here, and we actually see that in genetics. In fact, do you know what that would look like if supposedly the Jews are separate from Ishmaelites? You know what that would actually look like? It would look something like, let me show you, something like this right here. You see what you're seeing right here? We have a different types of people separated. So we have different types of people separated. And the reason why is because a lot of the groups were actually increasing here. Now, what we also have to understand is we got to look at ancient maps and see if surely someone else must have knew, right? Someone else must have knew that there were Jews down there. And in fact, if we look at ancient maps, we actually know that the people knew there were Jews down there. Like, for example, here's a map that was made by the French, right? Because the French actually came from the Franks, right? The Franks, these are different people. So these Franks, they actually made a map for the Duke of Orleans in 1766. And he writes, according to Edwarsi, the land hereabout was peopled by Jews. He tells you that the Jews were actually there in a place called Negro Land. The reason why it's called Negro Land because of Niger River and things like that. But you can see right here, they actually say that on this map that you can find, they say that this area was actually peopled by Jews. You can see right here, this is that map, and it shows in this lower area. And we actually look at that map, we can see some interesting things. Also, I want to show you on another map. There's actually a kingdom in this area. So you can see this one's older. You can see it's called Guinea right there. It's a more older map. I want to show you that this area over here, the slave coast, right here is the slave coast. I don't know if you can see that. The slave coast actually had a certain name there. It actually was called a certain name. And the name of that land was actually called the Kingdom of Judah. And we see that on multiple different maps that the people in that land, this is actually a map from 1710. This map is, and these are a lot of old maps. So you can see the evolution of some of these maps. Look at how small it is of Africa right here, barely anything on that one. And you can see it grows a little bit. I just want to go to the one right here. I want to show you something of this map right here. This is, so you see it's loaded in because it's obviously a larger detailed map of these things of this area. So just let it load in a little bit. So you can see right here, I don't know if you can see that right there. It says the slave coast, where they bought their slaves. Now, why do they buy slaves here? Because obviously going into these areas, they would make war. But if they own these people, if they say they own these people, you see what they're called? It says the slave coast.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I see it.
Feduda. Now, Fida right here, this is Judah. This is Judah right here. You see what it's saying, Yehuda? Right here.
Yeah, I do.
Yep. And why would they actually have the name of that name? The reason why is because they were actually Jews. We can actually see on another map right here. Here's another one that I want to show you. This is a map from 1799. And this time in 1799, if we actually look, we can see the slave coast. And guess what they also called? Judah. Yudi, right? Judah, things like that. Benjamin, Benny, things like that. They're all the same. They have the same genetics. All the ones in this lower area, where they call basically Negro land or the slave coast, where they've got their slaves, is actually going to be the same.
You know what's fascinating about all this is that there's other things that you can point to as well. You've probably heard of the pirates in the European and the Moorish sense.
Oh, yep, I did.
There were pirates who were part of the European, pirate crews who had names like Israel.
In fact, a lot of the pirates were actually Jewish. There was a famous pirate by the name Moses Cohen. I forget his last name. If you look it up on YouTube now, they paint him as white. You can see a lot of illustrations like this. This is what I'm saying. This is what people do. Cartoon history. This is what I call cartoon history. They paint their own picture of history. They don't actually give you historic quotes, but they paint their own picture of history. And what this actually does, it causes offense to the actual truth. Do you know that the actual real history that there's a person who did a whole series, he did a little book on it. Right here, he just read a little bit of them. And he talks about the Sephardic Moorish means blackish, real pirates of the Caribbean. And he actually reads the book word for word of what it actually says in the book. I'm not going to show you, but right now,
yes.
But he talks about them and what they look like. And it actually records them as being black, as being a darker skinned race, because it's in Jamaica, right? Even if we consider that in Jamaica, these people, they're going to be sent over there, and the people are actually known. They're still familiar to those ones. The crypto pirates that was going on in the Caribbean, they were actually of a darker skin. So this is obviously longer. This is like a 2-hour, but it's all facts, all historical references that actually reference that pirate as being a darker skinned person. But yet today,
some of those actually influenced, the two influenced each other. So you had European pirates influenced by the Moors, and the Moors were influenced by the Europeans. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things. Like, if we look at it, it just makes you wonder, why is it that there's so much confusion with some of these things going on, when history is supposed to be we're supposed to trust the historians to give us the actual information, right? There's other more famous maps of this.
I don't trust historians. I do my own reading and work. So
that's good. Most of it, you have to look at it yourself, because if you look at it yourself, you actually start to see stuff that maybe people aren't talking about. Here's a map that most people pull up. This is another map about the slave coast. You can see Kingdom of Judah or Yehuda and the slave coast, right? Jews of Africa, right? Just like the person said, in west coast of Africa, there were black Jews in the west coast of Africa that you heard from the historian. And you also see the genetic study. You've seen that the genetic information actually confirmed this thing. Now, what I want to do is also show you something. I want to show you one more thing real fast. Now, remember how I showed you that the Arabs are E1B1B? Do you know that if you look at this on a map, like not on a map, as if you look at this on a family tree, I want to show you a family tree, and I want to show you the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we can actually look at a family tree and it makes sense, right? If the Arab is E1B1B and we put it on a family tree, and if E1B1A is supposedly the line of Israel, we got to look at it on a tree. Now, if we say that this is Abraham, right, P2, and now you're probably wondering, is the E line found outside of Africa? Yes. The E line is actually found in the Levant. You actually find these are actually going to be from a people called the Natufian. If you ever look at the Natufian people, they're found in right here, the Natufian right here. They're found in the Middle East, and they're the E line. They're from the EY chromosome, and guess where they're found? In the Middle East, right here. And they find their DNA in a lot of different places. As you see, these red dots are actually where they find this E lineage in the land. And notice where they're at. Remember who was up here. Abraham had to come up here and get his wives and everything like that. Notice that his lineage is actually up over in these areas. So we see that we find those Natufians, just to show you that E lineage is found in the Middle East. Now, I want to show you that this E1B1 is actually Abraham. Now, Abraham splits and you get E1B1B. These are actually the real Arabs, the real Ishmaelites. Now, what do we have to have? We have to have Isaac being the brother of Ishmael, but having a different lineage. And he does. He has a different lineage. E1B1A goes and have another line. Now, these are private lines. Now, why is this important? Because I want to show you something. I talked to family DNA, to family tree DNA, and I want to show you what they said, because what they actually tell us is something really interesting, that I actually haven't showed anyone yet, but I want to show you, because I think it's important to actually get information from the actual geneticists, because they're going to give you a little more information than we can actually provide sometimes. But they do give clarity to things that you may have thought before, just to make sure it is what we actually examine, right? And that's actually what I found out. Let me actually open up a different one, because I think I put it in a different place, because I want you to see this. And if we actually look at the information, we need it to match, and we need actual people to agree with it to know that it is actually true. And I want to show you that geneticists actually agree with it. And I want to show you that the lines that I just showed you, no one has. No one has. That means they're ancient. They're ancient, that other people have them, that were of old, people of a long time ago. I'm just seeing if I put it here. If I didn't, I would have to just put it on there. Just seeing if I did, because it's an interesting quote. It's a very interesting quote. But from what it looks like, I did not put on here. But I'm gonna put it on here from my phone, because it's a screenshot that I didn't share yet, but I want to show you, because I think it's important to see. I think it's important to see. But have you ever seen any of this? Have you ever seen things like this before? Have you ever seen any of these information that I have shown you? Have you ever?
I've heard about genetics, and it's one of those things that I don't really know too much about. And my thing is more like the cultural side of things. When I'm looking for certain people, I look at their cultural practices.
Right. I think that we gotta be
what they
careful.
do.
We gotta be careful on culture, because culture can change, right? Like, for
Of course
example,
it can,
a lot of people in America who's Hispanic, they probably was doing different practices 100 years ago compared to now.
Well, okay, it's interesting you mentioned that. You want to hear something that's actually quite interesting about that?
Yeah, go on.
In Spain, there actually were people who weren't proper Spanish, but they were gypsies and Jews,
Yep,
of course.
gypsies that were dark skinned gypsies.
They were gypsies and Jews, and they had their own language almost. It was called Kalo.
Yep, and you know who the gypsies were, right? The gypsies were actually the Indians.
Yes.
Yeah, the gypsies
They
were actually
were people who had migrated to Europe, eventually getting to Spain. And what happened is they brought that Kalo with them. So when they went to the New World with the Spanish who were the proper, Españoles, they actually, they brought some of that with them. So to this day, you actually have a kind of Kalo in the United States.
That's right. Yeah, but I know about I was doing a little study on the people that were gypsies and everything. I was looking at those people and everything. Yep, the gypsies, they're a people that were actually considered to be Indians.
Yes,
yep, I was doing a little bit on that.
India like that, yes.
That's right. So I want to show you this, because I want you to see that this is true. Because when we look at, I want you to hear this information first. I was talking to Family Tree DNA, right? I was just sending some things to Family Tree DNA, and I was asking some questions, and I just wanted to verify something. So this is what they said. Because I wanted to ask them, can I find out that I'm E1B1A? The reason why is because E1B1A, because I hear a lot of people say I'm E1B1A, but E1B1A actually is Jacob. It's a lineage that no one has, but we are actually E1B11 and different things like that. So there's E1B1, and then there's E1B1 that is E1B1A, and there's E1B1A1, which, and I don't know if you can understand. Basically, there's three lineages that no one has. There's three branches that no one has, but then branches off to 12 different sub branches, and that's actually quoted by the the geneticists. They tell you that there's 12 major branches in these groups. But listen to what they say right here. They say, thank you for contacting Family Tree DNA. We won't predict you to E1B1A exactly, which is also known as EV38, because EV38 is right here. So EV38, but they say right here, it says exactly, which is also known as EV38. However, we will predict you to EMM2. Now that's EMM2 is actually going to be Jacob right here. It's going to be another line. And the reason why they're going to predict you to it is saying that you break off from them. It's saying you break off from M2. But watch what it says here. It says, and will predict you to M2, which is one of the major subclides. That just means a sub branch, like how you see right here. Is basically one of the major sub branches. And watch what it says right here. However, we will predict you to EM2, which is one of the major subclides of that haplotype group. And being predicted to it would mean that you belong to E1B1A, which can be done with DNA 37 if you wanted to confirm whatnot and whatnot. But you can see right there, it's actually letting us know that this is a past lineage, this is a past lineage, and this is a past lineage. And if we notice, this actually goes to E1B1B. This one doesn't have a son, right? Because remember, Isaac, this is amazing because if you look here, Isaac doesn't have any other son besides Jacob, right? And Esau. And we actually can link that to a different group. And we actually find a group that has an interesting tradition. They have a tradition of painting their hair red. And it's only in one people. E1B1C is actually only in one people, and they paint their hair red. But I'm not going to talk about that right now.
I'm curious about something. Who do you think is Esau?
I believe that we found descendants of Esau. These are descendants of Esau right here. And the reason why is because they're the only people that's E1B1C. And remember, Esau actually merged with the Canaanites and the Ishmaelites, right? He actually had children with when I say Canaanites, actually Hittites, which are actually Hamites. So he actually had children.
You don't think Edom?
No, I don't subscribe. I don't subscribe to where they say that every European is Esau. I know I don't subscribe to that.
Because that's one thing that I kind of believed when I was with Judah Nazareth.
Oh yeah, see they try to make that
Edomite.
Yeah, they try to make that so, and that makes no sense because Edom is a twin of Jacob. Edom is a genetic twin of Jacob. That makes no sense. But no, I don't believe in that because we actually know what line is Japheth. That was just one of those things that I think when a lot of the movements was going on, a lot of camps, they had a lot of anger. That's just prophetic. Remember, it said he has given salvation to the Gentiles to provoke them to anger and jealousy. So I call that.
They also read in Malachi how the memory of Esau will be wiped out.
Exactly, and the male line. They were waiting for that. Exactly, the male line of Esau's wiped out, but the female line, we can see that in some people. Which is also prophetic. But look what it says right here. So Abraham brings forth E1B1B, and we confirmed that those were Ishmaelites. Remember how I showed you the historical documents, and we can actually follow the whole history of those people. And the E1B1B breaks from Abraham. Notice how it breaks from Abraham, but then we have Isaac. Notice Isaac, right? He has only Jacob and obviously Esau, but that's going to be under Isaac. But he doesn't have no other broken branch going in any different direction. But he has a direct son, and his direct son is Jacob. From Jacob, we don't get another branch from him. We don't get another branch. We get 12 branches. And I'm going to show you that they actually say that there's 12 branches that come from the line of Jacob. I want you to see what they actually say towards this real fast. I just want to go down and I want to show you something because I think it's important to see this. And also geneticists actually know that there's 3 different branches like Ham, Shem, and Japheth on the genetic tree. As you can see here, these are 3 different branches. This is Shem, Ham, and Japheth, 3 different branches. But before I talk about that, I'm going to show you real fast that there are 12 tribes in this group of people. Now I want to show you, because if we look at, right, we can look at the tree, and then we get the exact same design with the tree. The DNA tree looks just like the tree that we design when we design what is written by the scriptures. We can see all these things, and we can see for main groups. You see these 4 groups right here, from the 4 mothers. You know that the Y chromosome actually alters a little bit of the X in the past. This is actually 23andMe. It says, first, understand a little bit more about the Y chromosome is helpful. The Y chromosome does undergo recombination with the X chromosome, but only does so at the ends. And so 95% remains the same. Basically, he's talking about that the X chromosome could change. In the beginning, with the first 4 mothers, we actually see evidence of that that thing that had happened of the first 4 mothers, and we see that written in some of these writings. But let me click this so you can see what it says about this lineage, that we actually have evidence of the 12 tribes and their 4 mothers. We have evidence of the 12 tribes and their 4 mothers. It says right here, this is a real genetic study. It says, this is on Nature, of the possible 17 haplogroups, 12 were observed in the complete data set with haplogroup E1B1A. That is the sign of Israel. That's to let us know that Israel is found. We got 12 lines coming from Jacob. We got 12 lines coming from this line of Jacob. So we can also see right here, he also talks about right here the most individuals belonging to one of the 4 sub haplogroups. It talks about 4 right here. It says among 120 DNA donors composing the 4. Basically, it just basically talks about that there's 4 basic populations. There's 4 groups that are found that are more dominant right here, and these 4 groups are because the X chromosome merging, doing different things with the Y chromosome. This just shows us that there's 4 mothers, for the sake of understanding. Not gonna get too deep into that one, but I'm gonna show you another one right here. Again, of the 12, it says most likely origin of 12 out of 20 potential founders. You see what it's saying there? It's talking about the genetics have 12 lines coming from it, 12 disciples. And here's an idea of what it would look like. It's basically saying from the line of EM2, which is Jacob, there will be 12 lines from them, 12 lines that come from this lineage, 12. And that's actually what they say. They say there's 12 lines that come from the line of E1B1A. Now, we got to consider, is this, how are we going to have 12 lineages come from a direct person? And then that is going to also be found in the Jews that were in São Tomé and Príncipe and different things like that. We have different confirmations for what the scriptures are saying and what we actually see in genetics. So we actually see those 12 lines in these people, and we actually see that they actually have 4 mothers. We actually see that they have 4 mothers.
This is very interesting, and I'm glad you actually understand this because this is all going over my head. But I might catch this later. I'm gonna watch the rest of this. I just there's things I gotta do. So
Amen.
yeah,
so I just want to, in fact, I want to leave it on this. Here's the last thing I want to show you.
Okay.
So in the lower area of Ethiopia, that was actually the lower area of Africa, right? It wasn't called Africa at the time of Tacitus, right? During the time when the Romans were ruling in Rome. But this is what he said. This is what a historian says. The Roman historian Tacitus in 55 AD wrote that many of his time believed that the Judeans were a race of Ethiopian origin. Now, remember what I showed you in the map, right? Remember how I showed you Ethiopia was not actually a place, but that's actually what you actually note, that Africa, everything in Africa is called
a region. Yeah.
Exactly. So he actually said that the Jews seemed like they were a people. And what does Ethiopian mean? It means blackface. Ethiopian actually means blackface. And that's what he's saying.
You want to know what kind of backs up your point on that?
Go ahead.
You know what the name of Morocco is in Arabic?
Morocco. I forget.
It's Al-Maghreb.
Al-Maghreb?
Which means the West. So the Western region.
The Western, yep. There you go.
They don't call it Morocco in Arabic because to them that's a region, not a country.
Exactly. And
so I just wanted to back you up on that. It's been a good talk. I had an interesting time.
Amen. I want to leave you with one more question. So, do you think that it's important that just like I talked about the Romans, it's not good to take a Roman history and paint all black people. Do you think it's right to take the Judeans when every historian actually knew they were black and paint them as white?
I agree with you. That's wrong. We need to pick people.
We need real
properly.
history. I just wanted to show you this to consider that there is evidence for black Jews, and I think that we should consider the history. So I just say that for everyone that we should consider the history.
All right, I agree with you on that. So have a good one. I'll see you next time.
I mean, I'll see you next time. So,
all right. Take care.
So with that, family, I just want to end it with this. History is one of those subjects that if we want to bring the truth of history, we need to look at the hard facts and we need to agree to the truth, not just because it looks nice or it fits our narrative, but because it's actually true. We need to bring history that is actually true, because if we bring up history that's actually true, we may bring to life some things that at first, when considering in our sight, we may not believe. But if we actually look at it very carefully, we will probably understand something that the world itself is covering up. So I just say this in love. I hope that we can see the things that we're actually bringing out as not a movement of causing anger and fighting and bickering and cursing and calling people out of their name or calling someone this thing or that thing. As we are in this page, for the sake of understanding, we are sure and without a doubt that the people that went into captivity in all the nations were indeed the real Israelites. And we can know who is who, right? We know the line of Japhetic line. We can look at the genetics of different lines. Why can't we just know who is the Shemitic lines? I'm gonna let this last part.
Some of my
I'm gonna
recent
close this because I just showed those things. I'm gonna close these things. I'm just gonna close a few of these things because I don't need all these things here. I'm just gonna close a whole bunch of these things. And I want to leave it on this. I want to leave it on this because the reason I want to leave it on here, because I put this in the description, and I want anyone to take a look at some of these things, ask questions, and what you'll see is real historical evidences of the truth of the matter of who is who. And you'll actually realize that maybe we should start considering that maybe history is not really history, and maybe it's starting to become movie magic. So with that, family, I just take this moment I want you to understand that I love you. I want you to be blessed. I want you all to be blessed because I think the truth is one of those things that we need to spread no matter what, however it is. So as always, I appreciate the time, family. And with that, be blessed, be beloved. And also, I'm going to do a live with a brother, a more hard-hitting brother on right here. His name is, I guess, Genesis 49ers. This is his page. I'll be doing a live with him. I'm going to bring forth this note that I just showed you to him, and I'm going to bring forth some information that we're going to talk about. And that will, from my time, 4 hours, well, about 3 hours from now, and I'm going to have a holy conversation with this brother in the short coming time. So I'll throw that on here when that comes, and we'll have that conversation, and we shall talk about those things. So with that, family, I hope that this bless you, as I always do this in truth and love, and I always want to bring forth a good and healthy holy conversation and talk about those things. I think I'm gonna say, I hope I'm saying this right. Negi, I thank Negi for coming on and being a good sport and actually giving us some extra information on some of the people like the Illuminati and things like that, and also a little bit on the words Arabia, right? Knowing that Zapple with the things like Arabia, a lot of words that Arabia say are actually going to come from a more Afro-Semitic people. So I think it's important that we know this history, because if we just set one type of people at power, we're designing a false narrative and a racist narrative for the sake of understanding. And it's saying, and a lot of people, they paint that people were monkeys and they had no power over anything in the world. But rather, we actually got to understand that there were important individuals in history that did have a darker pigmentation of skin. So I just wanted to throw those things out there, beloved family. I thank all the brothers for all that they do. And with that, be blessed,